Hey guys, hope everyone's doing well. We're going to go over a little introduction to section 22.2 in your textbook. I'm coming at you through your computer right now. Can't get away from me. Don't feel bad about it. Feel free to use the other notes section on your right column of your notes. Remember, the middle is for the bare minimum information. The right is for the additional stuff that you think will better help you connect ideas, connect concepts, especially if you feel very confused a lot of the time. When World War I finally ended in 1918, the world was pretty excited. Americans came home, Germans went home, French people went home, the British went home. Pretty much everyone went home. However, the country was changing pretty rapidly before our eyes. Imagine that in 2 years' time, you're able to book a trip to Mars as easily as you could book a trip to Florida. Or you can project yourself as a hologram across the Atlantic Ocean just as easily as you call somebody on the phone. That is the level of change we're talking about here. As with many examples of change, a lot of people welcomed it and it was really exciting, but a lot of people were really genuinely scared of it. If you're used to tradition, used to repetition, change can be very scary. And that is exactly what happens in the 1920s. We have 4 really big examples of change that we're going to go over for this first section right here.
1.
Prohibition. We attempt to ban the production, transportation, and sale of alcohol in the entire country. This is actually an idea that a lot of people liked for a while. We were all on board with trying to get rid of that vice that was alcohol. But as you ban any really popular product, a black market will come out for it. So while we turned in our local breweries and vineyards, we traded them in for very friendly faces like Al Capone and Babyface Nelson, Pretty Boy Floyd, Bugs Moran, and the O'Banion Gang. All people that were more than willing to use violence and intimidation to ensure that they made profit off the ban of alcohol.
You're a monster!
2.
The 19th Amendment, one of the most important amendments in the entire Constitution, easily, because it ensured that half the country, and by some numbers more than half of our country, the right to vote and eventually win many elections. One of the things that this will do is it will give a lot of women the opportunity who felt for a very long time like they were stuck behind the shadow of their husband's job and his success and his name, to come out of the shadows and feel like they can really have their own agency and their own career path and lives. Many of these young women that are growing up in this generation see many women stepping out of those shadows to fight for the right to vote and to fight to be treated fairly. And these young women decide that they too want to take a stand and make progress for women. And they start to act out in their own way as independent women with free agency. And we call them flappers.
3.
Mass culture. All the stuff you guys think of today as just American culture started back right here in the 1920s. We have the birth of Hollywood. We have the advent of affordable cars and radios. All 3 of these things connect the country in a way it never had before. And the most significant portion of all of these things was that the assembly line allowed us to be able to do that. The assembly line took something that would initially cost thousands of dollars for one person, one expert mechanic to create, and it spread out the process across several unskilled workers which made it quicker to produce and cheaper to produce, and therefore cheaper to buy for consumers. This very simple innovation made a huge impact on everything that people did back then, and in particular today. Not a single thing that most of us own or handmade by one or a few craftsmen. Most of every product we own, from our furniture to our electronics to our clothes, were made with some form of the assembly line method. We simply would not exist or afford to exist as we do today if it was not for Henry Ford. Also, he joined the Nazi Party later, but more on that another time. This leads us to our very final big topic of change, which is the Great Migration. This was the movement of freed blacks from the South out of unfair and prejudiced areas and into slightly more welcoming northern cities like Chicago, New York, Detroit, and Boston. While this is a positive time in the sense that this population is getting a fresh opportunity at the real American dream that they've been denied for years, there is a major negative reaction to this movement of people on top of the continued migration of Europeans into the country. And that is the second revival of the Ku Klux Klan. Remember, they were founded right after the Civil War to try to terrify freed slaves back into more or less the same role they had filled for centuries before that. And you'd think that having to wear a mask every time you're out in public so that people don't know who you actually are would be a sign that maybe what you're doing is a bad path, but who am I to say?
What about you, Robert?
Can you see? Not too good.
I just made mine worse.
I think we all think the bag was a nice idea.
Yeah.
But not pointing any fingers. They could have been done better.
What tradition means to the KKK is Protestant Christians, not Catholic Christians, Anglican descendants, people from England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, not people from Italy and Russia and other Eastern European countries, people that are white, not people that are black or Mexican or Asian. In other words, the increasing diversity of this country is the enemy of the Klan. When this Great Migration happens, diverse black culture, from music to art to poetry, spreads into traditionally white areas of the country in the north. And that is what begins to create what we know today as our modern pop culture, modern art, modern music, modern literature.